Hi, welcome to the Public Policy Show. I'm Caroline and I'm here this evening with Shota, and we're very excited to introduce you to our guest.
Today we're joined by Chuck Benbrook from Portland, and we're going to go ahead and start into asking questions on organic food policy.
All right, our first question is please tell us why organic food is important to you, and let us know a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Organic food is important both for people's health and it's also important for the environment. In addition, growing organic food typically delivers to the farmer a much better return than producing conventional food. There is a premium for most organic foods in the marketplace, and a good portion of that stays with the farmer. And that's very important because a lot of farmers these days are having a hard time staying on the land. I've been involved with national food policy since the late 70s, mostly in the area of pest management and pesticides and biotechnology, and certainly have been impressed with the progress that's been made in organic farming systems, both in terms of the safety of food as well as the nutritional quality of food.
Excellent. And what we're trying to accomplish in Cambridge is we're trying to introduce organic food to schools here. And we want to ask you if you've tried something similar in the past, and what's the best way to go about it?
Well, there are certainly a number of universities and school districts that have started programs, and some have been going on for a number of years. The foundation of success really is a relationship between the school district and often the cafeteria staff and the Parent Teachers Association with some of the local farmers or a local farmers market. In some cases, there may be 3 or 4 small local food processing companies. For example, a company that makes yogurt or cheese. Once school districts start to contract directly with local farmers and sources of locally produced food, often the reaction among the students and among the cafeteria staff is so positive that people want to look for further opportunities, and then the whole effort can begin to snowball into creating a kind of a local and regional food hub where a larger percentage of the calories that students eat on a day-to-day basis come within 300 or 400 miles as opposed to from all across the country or sometimes around the world.
Right. And we actually noticed that a lot of the local and federal government policies are centered around nutrition, but we know that organic food is more nutritious than non-organic. Can you tell us more about why organic food is more nutritious?
Sure. There have been literally hundreds of studies around the world that have compared the nutritional profile of, say, an organic strawberry compared to a conventional strawberry, where the same varieties of strawberries are grown in fields side by side, but under these different production systems. And what is typically found in these sorts of carefully controlled side-by-side experiments is that the organic fruit matures a bit more slowly. It doesn't get as large as the conventional fruit because there's not as much nitrogen fertilizer available in the soil. The organic fruit will have a deeper, richer flavor and a higher level of health-promoting antioxidants, which are vital for everyone in dealing with oxidative stress that's part of our normal metabolism. The reason that much of the conventional fruits and vegetables that are in the market has reduced nutrients is that farmers put so much nitrogen and other fertilizers into their system and they grow such big fruit what the plants do with that extra nitrogen is basically produce carbohydrates and often just different forms of sugar. Yes, some of these, amazing, huge strawberries and apples that are on the market, they look great and they're very sweet, but they don't have nearly as much vitamin C and other antioxidants as the smaller and often more flavorful organic fruit that's also available.
What are your thoughts on food waste within the industry and in non-organic versus organic?
Well, food waste is a huge global problem and challenge. I mean, just imagine approximately half of the food produced around the world is never consumed by a human being. And multiple studies have concluded that that number could be cut by half with just systematic adherence to a lot of common sense methods to not be so wasteful. And if by some miraculous method, a bunch of smart people at Harvard could figure out how to redirect that 25% of food waste from the landfills and garbage dumps to the people that really need it, it would eliminate about half of the world hunger problem without growing a single acre of food. So it's a huge opportunity. I think that there isn't a huge difference between the percent of organically grown food that ends up being wasted compared to conventional food. That food supply chains in the organic part of the food industry work pretty much the same as conventional supply chains. So, unfortunately, there's important progress to be made in both the areas, and hopefully that will be something that the world community puts more effort in the future.
And where do you see the organic food industry going in about 5 years?
Well, I think it's going to grow at a different pace depending upon the type of food. It's been growing the fastest in the fresh fruit and vegetable area, and in the dairy sector, and in large part because parents with young children want to avoid exposing their kids to pesticides and growth hormones and other chemicals that are routinely a part of the conventional food supply. And really, the only way that a family can reliably avoid chemical food additives and hormones and pesticides is to seek out organic food. There's another reason that we've seen such steady growth in organic fruits and vegetables, and that is that the economies of scale and technology that have helped grow the conventional food industry have really started to kick in organic fruit and vegetable production in many regions. For example, there are wonderful organic apples and pears and other tree fruit being produced all across Washington State with the technology and systems that are every bit as sophisticated as those being used on organic farms, on conventional farms. In addition, the organic tree fruit industry in Washington State has gotten so big that there are now packing plants that are totally dedicated to running organic fruit. And this is a very important development because that means there are no post-harvest fungicides used in these packing plants, which are used on every conventional apple that's run through a plant in the country. So the growth in the organic industry and getting it up to scale has both increased the supply and reduced the price premium, and so that's why we see organic leafy greens and organic apples in many markets are well over 10% and in some cases pushing 20% of total sales.
We actually read one of the reports that in California there was one school district that went 100% organic, and all they had to do for that was to increase subsidies per meal by 15 cents. So they were saying that it cost $1.25 per student to produce a meal, and all the local government had to do is subsidize it by 15 cents more, and they were able to afford organic food in their schools. Do you think similar method can be adopted in Massachusetts or in other states?
Well, I don't think that a school district in Massachusetts can switch from conventional food to organic food and only spend 15 cents more per meal. And if they did, it would be a very limited menu. There are a number of staple foods, however, that can be produced and are being produced organically for very close to the same price as conventional food. And so if menus stick to a lot of basic foods that are easy to buy in bulk and can then be prepared into nutritious and flavorful meals that the kids will like to eat. It can be done, but you have to remember that there are a lot of ingredients of a typical meal that are not readily available in organic form, certainly year round or in certain parts of the country. Now, a school district in the middle of California, where there's the largest concentration of sophisticated organic farms and food businesses, it's not that difficult to procure organic ingredients for many common meal choices. But in New England in the winter, in the middle part of the country, outside of the fruit and vegetable season, it gets much harder. So it is possible to make bigger parts of the meals that a school district serves organic, but going for 100% can both narrow the choice of foods that are available and also raise costs a lot more than 15 cents a day.
Well, do you think if the federal government and state governments start encouraging more organic farming, that firm entry in organic food industry would increase? That substantial will increase competition for prices?
Well, there's many factors that are affecting entry into farming. It costs to start a commercial scale organic farm. Somebody's got to have approximately $1 million of land and equipment, and also a lot of experience. None of us would think that we could open up a cardiology shop and start doing heart surgery on people without a lot of training and experience. Well, farming is every bit as complex and technical a profession as anything in healthcare or engineering or any other technical field, and it is difficult to get pathways for new people to enter the field, and there's obviously a lack of mentors and experienced people who have been farming organically for many years and have learned the tricks of the trade. So there's certain things that the government can do, and certainly European governments have had much more success from long-term efforts to grow the organic food industry and promote organic farming. There are countries in Europe where organic acreage and production is pushing 30% of total agriculture. The United States could follow on that path and reach 30% perhaps in 20 years if there was a significant change in attitudes, and if the American public really understood better the types of public health impacts that are inevitably a result of the routine exposures to pesticides that we all are getting on a daily basis, unless we are being disciplined and seeking out only organic food. But unfortunately, it's been hard to educate the American public about what modern science shows, because obviously the food industry and the U.S. Department of Agriculture and much of conventional agriculture is very defensive and determined to convince the American public that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the current conventional food supply.
And you mentioned healthcare industry. The savings that organic food industry can generate for the healthcare industry could be substantial. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. One of the really exciting and important studies that came out about a year ago, it was a very large epidemiological study in France involving over 50,000 people who were tracked to see the relationship between organic food consumption and the incidence of new cases of cancer. And the conclusion of the team, after a very rigorous and sophisticated epidemiological study, was that those consuming the highest levels of organic food had a remarkable 25% lower risk of having any new case of cancer over a 5-year period. Can you imagine if any pharmaceutical company came up with a medication or a treatment that reduced the risk of breast cancer by 25% or prostate cancer? I mean, it would be heralded as a medical breakthrough, and yet there is credible, solid science that by getting the pesticides out of the diet over a lifespan can dramatically reduce the risk of cancer, of diabetes, and a number of other chronic health problems.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate your time and your input.